Welcome to Real Deal MeetUp, Duru Interviews. In every episode, we interview top real estate investors and entrepreneurs across the globe. Listen and learn to earn with insider tips, tactics, and strategies to bring real dealer success into your life. Here to show you how is your host, investor, published author, educator, and fellow Duru, Clifton McKnight.
Welcome to Duru Interviews. This is Cliff McKnight. What a great day it is because we have the privilege of talking with none other than Mike Ruscica, who's been in the business of note buying and selling and dealing for over 8 years. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, Clifton, I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, I'm outstanding. I'm excited about this time we have together. First of all, just really want to hear a little more about the great things. I certainly enjoyed our conversations. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, you know, I started buying rental properties back in 1999, just staying local in my own backyard here in New Jersey, and picked one up here, picked one up there, and I really enjoyed the thought or the notion that all these people that I'm providing housing to owes me money. I would collect the rents and pay the debt service, and I thought that was the best way to make money by having all these people in town paying me rent. And then I discovered this non-performing note business back in 2007, early on. I was invited to a private webinar series or sessions, and this fellow was introducing all these investors to the note business. And what he would do would be sell us non-performing mortgages on properties across the country. And he would help us get these non-performing mortgages performing again. And that really intrigued me, and then I realized that we could buy these notes not at face value, a $50,000 mortgage for $50,000, but a $50,000 mortgage I could buy for $10,000 or $15,000. So it kind of expanded on my thought of having people around my town owing me money. Now I have people across the country that owe me money, and I can buy that at a discount, at a severe discount sometimes. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. Once I was introduced to this business and I started applying some of my rental type techniques, I've been hooked. I did my first deal back in 2007, and it was a huge win for me. And kind of like you go to Atlantic City or to Las Vegas, and first time you go, you win. You're hooked. And,
yeah. Well, tell me what's a huge win, man? What can a person expect or not expect? Let's say you take someone who's a average note dealer and maybe someone who's had a good month. Sure.
So I started buying these notes and investing in them. I quickly realized that you can tie up all your capital and not have enough money to buy all the notes that you want. So that was a position I got into real quickly and I deployed all of my money, and then I realized that, hey, now what? I started getting into brokering notes, and with a single brokering deal, $60,000 selling 84 notes. That was a nice little win, and that's something that can be on a consistent basis, and not waiting for a mortgage payoff. But typical.
Wait. Back up. I want you to say that again. I'm not sure I heard you correct. Sounded like you said 60,000. Say that again.
Yeah. So I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but.
So go right ahead.
You had mentioned on my introduction that I buy and sell and wheel and deal these notes. I started supplying notes out to my investor friends as a kind of a sourcing helping them build up their business and build up their portfolio of non-performing notes. And in the process, I would mark up every note in this transaction so that I could take down a profit, because it's a lot of work. It was a lot of work because, first of all, I had to go out and find these notes, calling banks, calling hedge funds, calling servicing companies, and building up a kind of a relationship with these different type of institutions, and get them to show me some product that I could actually sell out to my investor friends. And so, a typical trade, I like to make between $1,000 and $1,500 per note on a transaction. And if I'm dealing with a hedge fund, I'm dealing with a fund right now. They've got $400,000 to spend. So $400,000, you figure every note is going to have a typical purchase price of, let's say, $20,000. They can buy 80 notes. Well, if I can broker those notes out, if I can make $1,000 in every note, that's a nice transaction. And
well, I'd say so, but I'm hearing you say that you're able at some point to sell multiple notes to one person, which suggests that you've done the hard work of acquiring the rights to sell a large number of notes. So
yeah, so this is the way it works. When we're dealing with banks and institutions, we try to get away from the onesie twosies, onesie deals, kind of like, and I'm not picking on wholesalers or people in short sales or anything like that. But I know that when people are trying to do a wholesale deal or a short sale, you can only do that on one house, and you can only do that really on one transaction. When these banks and institutions and hedge funds trade paper, it's called, they trade in volume. Sometimes they trade 10 notes at a time or 5 notes at a time. It's very rare that you'll find someone that would be even willing to sell you just one note, unless they're just a small player.
Hold that thought. We're going to pause for a moment, and then we'll pick right back up. Okay?
Sure.
And that, for example, is just an opportunity to put in our intro, not intro, but little something.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead. Okay, we're back with Mike Ruscica, and telling us a little bit about multiple transactions as opposed to wholesaling or even rehabbing, where you're doing one deal at a time.
Right.
Where you were.
Okay, so like I said before, when you're brokering notes, you're establishing a relationship. I'm establishing a relationship with a potential new seller of notes, and that relationship could last for 2 years. By introducing myself, by presenting myself as a professional, I can establish a relationship with a hedge fund and continue to broker out or buy notes from that hedge fund for years to come. That's just not available in the wholesale business. And you'll go out and you'll establish a relationship with someone who's trying to sell their house, and then you wholesale that house out to an investor that you may have a relationship with, and that's it. The deal is done. Now you have to go out and find a whole new deal to perform your magic on. With the note business, it's a longer-term relationship that I have with the source of these notes. And it's definitely a long-term relationship I have with my investors that are actually purchasing these notes. And that's the beauty of this business that I've really been able to fine-tune and hone, and is establishing these relationships and credibility, and people actually trust me, and they understand that I am going to get the deal done and get the wire closed and transact the fund and make sure that all of the documentation is supplied the way it's supposed to be supplied from the seller to the buyer, and really just as a deal closer. And so the way it really works is these banks have thousands of loans, obviously, the tens of thousands that have gone into default, and they want to get rid of them all at once. So when we're looking at notes, we look at spreadsheets that are hundreds, if not thousands, of deals long, which kind of makes our lives easy. You do everything from home, everything from the desktop. Basically, this business, you need a laptop and a cell phone, and the education. You need to know what you're doing, or else you can get crushed.
Right.
And that's a unfortunate thing that some people miss out on the education part of it. Most people have a laptop and cell phone, but they don't have the background to get into this business.
Well, it sounds very much like it to me. I can sure appreciate an opportunity to drop 15, 20, 30, 40, and even up to $60,000 in my bank account. I think most of the listening audience ears perk up when they hear that. Of course, everything has a downside, as you indicate, and I think if you're selling or purchasing in bulk, obviously you'll have some, what we call them, frogs or pigs in the mix. But the profit margin sounds so significant that you can afford to have a few.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, Clifton. It's a numbers game. When let's say that hedge fund goes out and spends their $400,000, hopefully they spend it with me. There are going to be a percentage of notes that are just going to be a huge win for the investor. They're just gonna buy the note at, let's say, 30 cents on the dollar, and they'll get paid off 70 cents on the dollar. And that's a 150% return on their investment. That could happen in 3 months, or it could happen in 3 years. If it happens in 3 months, well, now you've got even a larger return. Then maybe 30% of those notes are going to be a long-term process where you'll get the borrower to start making a monthly payment back to you, and it may take you 3 or 4 years for you to recuperate all of that money that you put out in the purchase of those 30% of those notes. So that's a nice situation as well. There may be 30% of those things that you can't do anything with. You can't get any type of collection out of it. You may just sit on those things and hope for, and I don't want to go through all the exit strategies that we use, but, you may hope for a short sale where, don't forget, you're the bank. When you buy one of these notes, you become the bank. And the bank makes the decision on what these short sales are going to be, the amount, what they're willing to accept. So when you become the bank, you're able to tell them, no, we're not going to accept $160,000. We need $175,000, and you can be in charge of the short sale and actually control the short sale from the bank side, not from the buy side. And it's a concept that took me a little bit of time to kind of wrap my arms around. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the bank now, and I still compare it to this day to being a landlord. I'm still a landlord myself, and I'm also the bank. And it's very rare that I would ever receive a phone call from one of my borrowers telling me that the toilet's clogged. And,
that's right. Right.
The pipes are frozen. Well, you don't call the bank for that. And so it has many benefits. But like I said, you are in control and as the bank, but there's a lot of moving parts to this business.
Well, yeah, let's take a look at this again, because you pointed out earlier we led into brokering, and so you have large numbers of notes and you sell those notes in bulk to different investors. And you mentioned hedge fund. I don't know if that was something we talked about earlier or not, but whatever it is, whoever that client is, whoever that person is, they have the funds and they're looking to purchase something at a discount. You built in your profit in the sale, and you got it at such a rate that still makes it a huge value for them. So let's talk a little bit about how you acquire the notes.
Okay. All right. So the whole process is, how do I want to go through this now?
Well, let's do it right after this break. Let's take another moment here, and I'll let you think about that a little more, because, well, I know that we've got people who have put pause. They're going to listen to this over and over again. And this is something very exciting.
Like what you hear? Head over to iTunes and rate and leave a review. Your feedback makes us visible to other Durus and is very much appreciated.
And we're back. Thank you very much. We were really excited. You were about to launch off on telling us how you get these rascals.
Okay, great. So the process is this. I would establish a relationship with one of these, let's just use a hedge fund right now, an investor, a group of investors that has gone out and purchased, let's say, 5,000 notes. They've collected their capital. They've created a private placement memorandum, and they've gathered up, let's say they've raised $5 million. They went out and bought 5,000 notes. And out of those 5,000 notes, they've decided to sell off a certain portion of them for whatever reason. Selling notes is one of the exit strategies that we use to make a profit. We sell notes because we have to pay our investors their monthly payment. People raise capital and need capital for various reasons. They may sell off 300 or 400 of these notes because a better deal came along, and they want to capitalize and recapitalize their money and go out and buy this new group of notes. Or they may buy. There's funds out there that just buy and sell notes. They buy them. They keep the cream of the crop, which might be the top 10%, and they sell off the bottom 90%. And
at a discount.
Absolutely at a discount. That's the part that we're just so used to. I don't even say it anymore. So let's say they have 300 notes that they want to sell. I'm looking at 320 notes right now. And these notes are less than...
you get closer to the mic for us, would you?
Sure. These notes are actually... not the highest quality. So that means that the price goes down. Mm-hmm. And so they hand them off to me, and now I'm like, 300 notes. I don't have the capital to buy 300 notes, but I have the capital to buy maybe 25. So what do? I call up some of my key players. I actually am working with two of my students right now that we're looking to acquire the rest of these notes, and we'll pool our resources and together perform the due diligence necessary to make sure that we're not buying total garbage.
Right. And
we want to know as much, if not more, information than the seller actually has about these notes. We're playing detective here. Mm-hmm. When we sit down and we go through the spreadsheets and we pick through the information, there is tons of due diligence that we do behind the scenes to determine if this note is worth 2 cents or is worth 90 cents. And when I say 90 cents, I mean 90% of the face value of the note. Some notes are not worth $1. They're unsecured. They've gone into the garbage bucket, and we will actually put a price tag of 0 on that note, and then we move on to the next one. And we'll put a 30-cent tag on that one, and we'll move to the next one, and that's our due diligence process.
So again, when you say 0 or 30 cents, we're talking about on a dollar. If they're saying that the mortgage is $100,000 or $50,000, you look at it and you go, well, we'll pay you $1.50, making this is that a $500 purchase?
Right. Exactly. So let's back up a little bit and make sure we get our terminology. if I have a $100,000 mortgage and I say it's a 10-cent mortgage, well, we would offer $10,000 for that mortgage.
Wow.
And if it's a 50-cent note, then we'll give 50% or $50,000 of that note. And if it's, if we put a dollar on it, well, it's $1,000. The value is $1,000. It's just not worth anything. So so we'll go through, and that's I said brokering in the beginning. It's kind of a loose term because I'm sitting down with my investor friends as an investor who has more notes than I can chew off. So I'm looking at a tape right now with 324 notes on it. I bring in a few of my investors, and we'll be able to collectively buy these notes together. But I'm still acting as a broker, planning on making a commission on the notes that I don't purchase myself.
So when you bring them on to look at the value, the price is not set yet.
Most times not. Correct. So this is the internal process that I do personally. I'll bring in one investor. That investor has $100,000 to spend. We'll sit down together, and he'll apply an offer of, let's say, 20 cents on the dollar for the entire for him to spend the entire $100,000. I'll take that 20-cent offer and turn that into approximately 18 cents on the dollar, and that would leave me with a $20,000 profit. And I'll submit my offer to the seller at 18 cents on the dollar, and if the offer is accepted, then I keep 2 cents for myself. 2 cents doesn't sound like much, but on a $100,000 mortgage, it's $2,000.
Right.
And that's one note. We're looking to buy 320 notes. So that you can see, $2,000 on a $40,000 purchase. What's $2,000? It's not much. Well, it's one folder for me to make sure that I transfer over to the buyer. So there's niches that I've kind of fine-tuned and perfected to make this a seamless effort and work seamlessly, so that I can work as an expert in the due diligence process, reviewing these spreadsheets and assisting these other investors, and sometimes doing all of the work in the due diligence process, and they just come in and buy the notes, looking at the due diligence that I do. And so that's kind of what I do. That's what I teach. I've got a couple of students that I hold their hand and really walk them through the process to make sure that they're going to be profitable in this business as well.
I guarantee you, Mike, that we have a contingent on our listening audience who want to learn a whole lot more about that, and so we want to make sure we get some information from you before we depart. I have to ask you, because it really sounds like you have in the note business something for everyone. From the beginning, people who are, they have maybe lenders, or they're lenders, hard money lenders themselves, or some other type of investor where they do rehab. So they have some cash or access to cash. I can see readily where they would fit in. And then when you talk about brokering, my imagination says that, in essence, I can position myself where I can do like a wholesaler does and gather a variety of investors and say, I can find properties for you that you will want to invest in on pennies on a dollar. And then I would make my money as a go-between. How am I doing so far?
You're right on.
All right. But then it sounded like you offered a hybrid, and using yourself as an example, where you might be interested in 20, 25 properties yourself, or 20, 25 notes, and then you're going to identify other investors to cover the difference. I think I got that right too. But do you want to comment on that a little more?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, no problem. So let's use this tape of 320 notes that I'm looking at. I want to purchase 50 of these notes. I have my money that I can use. I have more passive investors that are behind me that want to invest with me, but they don't want to sit down and do the due diligence like I'm doing with this other investor. It's a total hybrid. So let's say I'm going to profit $20,000 on this transaction. My investor that comes in, who's sitting next to me on my right, in the internet world, this guy actually lives in New York. He funds the purchase, and I am going to profit $20,000. Well, I can take that $20,000 and apply it towards my note purchase and acquire notes for myself. I may be able to acquire maybe $300,000 or $400,000 worth of non-performing mortgages using his $20,000, and I'm filling up my portfolio with 10 more notes, and I'm acquiring more potential that way than if I just took the $20,000 and went out and bought pizza with it. So it's a total hybrid. There's like I said, there's a lot of ways to make money in this business. The fact that the banks are selling these notes at such a discount is where the potential profit comes in for me, the investor, and for me, the broker, and for the investor that's sitting to my right, who I'm sitting here helping go through the due diligence process, doing all of the necessary research to come to an established correct price. So yeah, it's a total hybrid, and I see out on the internet people that are out there brokering notes. They don't have the due diligence experience or education behind them to perform the necessary due diligence. They leave it all up to the end buyer, and I think that's where these deals start falling apart.
Okay. So that makes you, again, though, a more attractive person to do business with, because you have that insight and you pass that along. You can speak about the packages that you've put together. I'll tell you what, we're moving toward our rapid fire questions.
Real dealers. It's time to play Real Rapid Success.
Okay, and we're back here, folks. I know you've had a good ride. If you've been listening, you've heard strategies to create as much as $15, $20, $30, even up to $50,000 or $60,000 at a transaction by listening to the ideas and strategies that Mike Ruscica has passed on to us. Mike, what is your favorite strategy for finding deals?
Well, I'm a people person, and I don't mind going out and talking to strangers. There's endless ways to do that. You can go to county records online, public county records online, and look at who these mortgages are assigned to. And to give you a good example, when we buy a mortgage, let's say, off of this 320 notes, I end up buying 50 of these notes. Well, there's a document called the assignment that needs to be recorded at the county courthouse where this property is located, where that note is located. And that document gets recorded, and it's public information, it's public knowledge. So I can go, let's say I bought a note in Denver, Colorado. I have to record this assignment that says I bought this note from ABC Hedge Fund, and now it's coming into my company, and my company name is on this assignment. I actually put my 800 number on the assignment as well. And why I do that is so that if one of these savvy investors that's listening to your webinar here, to your podcast, says, I'm going to track down and see who who owns this mortgage, and they're going to call up my 800 number and say, hey, you want to sell me this mortgage? And I'll sell it to them. So, I know that people are out there doing the county record online searches, and you can find companies that are not on the beaten path. There's a lot of companies that are on the beaten path out there. What I mean by that is once you get into this business, you'll realize that there are certain players out there that make themselves publicly known. They make their notes publicly known. And those are kind of the buyers that I stay away from. I like to buy from someone who is not out there marketing their notes, like in a ShopRite type of a supermarket environment. I want to feel like it's more of a private transaction, and I don't want to think that everyone is out there like the MLS shopping, these notes. So there's a lot of little tips and tricks and strategies that you can use to go out and acquire these notes, and there are public websites that these notes are available at. That you and I were discussing before this, called FCI Exchange. That's Frank Charlie Indigo Exchange.com.
Okay.
There are hundreds of notes listed there. Some are good, some are bad. Some are priced correctly, and some are priced ridiculously. So coming back to the due diligence and to the understanding of this business is what makes deals work. I've kind of coined the phrase in the industry: there are no bad notes, just bad prices. And
good one. No bad notes.
There's there are notes that are worth a penny, and if you can nail that down and buy it for $500, you may make $2,000 on a trade, or on the actual note itself. And then there are notes that you might want to spend 90 cents on a dollar. You might spend $90,000 to buy a $100,000 note because the house is worth $200,000. And it makes perfect sense. So the pricing can be all over the place, and that's where most people get hurt. They pay too much for the note, and it's all about coming down to what the correct pricing is.
Wow, that's great detail on that one. These next four, I guess I'm going to have to look for a 10-second to 30-second response.
Okay.
I appreciate the answer you gave us on that very much. Listen, if you could name one book, what one key book would you recommend to our audience?
It's by Jimmy Napier. It's called Investing in Debt. And that's been an awesome kind of a roadmap.
Okay. Jimmy Napier, and the title again?
Investing in Debt. I think it was written in the 90s.
Beautiful, beautiful. Listen, I often say, Mike, if you can't calm the waters, learn to ride the waves. And I say that because sometimes we run into we're getting started and we run into big problems. Do you have a negative situation or circumstances that you can share with us and tell us how you used it actually to thrust you forward?
Sure. I'm constantly learning this business, and early on when I got into this business, there were many key elements that I wasn't looking at in my due diligence process. You need to get smacked around a little bit so that you remember the answer. And so I got smacked early on by not checking all of the taxes that were due on a property when I bought a first mortgage. And that happened on my first deal, and that'll never happen again. That's that's my fault, and boom, cost me $5,000 or something. But I learned from that, that's for sure. Okay,
very good. So that might even lead into the next to the last question I have for you. What would you advise someone who's just getting started, or anyone wanting to get started in this business? What would you suggest that they do?
Sure. Go out and find someone that can teach you the business. Don't try to learn it by trial and error. Like you said, I learned by trial and error, and I also learned from a mentor. But the mentor that I was buying from had one specific goal in mind, and that was to sell me notes. And so when you pick a mentor, know why you're selecting them. Are you selecting them because they're going to make a lot of money off of your educational fees, or are they looking to actually partner with you and want to do some deals with you?
Good one. So, with all that you've given us, if you wanted to leave us with one piece of advice, would that be the key piece of advice, or is there one thing that you'd like to leave us with that stands out above all the rest?
Well, this turns out to be this whole discounted business really turned out to be a way of life. And once you learn this business, you'll never look at things quite the same again. The unpaid principal balance, as we call it, when I buy a $50,000 mortgage, well, that's $50,000 worth of unpaid principal. Is that a real number or it's a fictitious number? In my mind, it's a fictitious number. It's kind of like monopoly money. Will I ever see the full $50,000 out of my $10,000 purchase? Probably not. So it really gives you a perspective of money, and it's a very unique perspective once you get it.
Okay.
Once you apply it,
How do we get in touch with you? Well, how do they get in? How do you want them to get in touch with you?
Sure. You can send an email to Mike, M-I-K-E, at Note Conference. It's all one word, noteconference.com. Or they can go and check out my website at noteconference.com. And there's a lot of free stuff I put on there. Once you sign up with noteconference.com, I put out emails probably 3 times a week that are purely content driven. Everyone that signs on to my No Conference group, I treat them as a member, and they get my free content. I hold probably a webinar every 3 weeks just on maybe some killer deals that we're working on, and want to share that out with the group, or I show people different software that I use or different software that other people bring to me that they use. And I have some guest appearances on people that have been in this business longer than I have. And it's a great community. I enjoy my people that sign up with No Conference.
Mike, I want to thank you for joining us, and I will ask you, would you be willing to come back to us again? We sure would like to have you come back and maybe delve into this a little bit further.
Yeah, I could go on and on.
Excellent. Cool. I'll count on that. Well, I'll hold you to it. Folks, you've had the privilege of hearing Mike Ruscica. You heard strategies for creating notes, making money on notes, as much as $60,000 a month, buying in bulk. Listen, look them up at noteconference.com or give them a call at mike@noteconference.com and get this party started. This is Cliff McKnight saying, can't calm the waters, learn to ride the waves. We'll see you later.
Nice.
That's it. Good. Now, I'm going to...
We hope you've enjoyed today's shows. For show notes, videos, updates, tools, and resources, plus free Real Deal Meetup membership, visit realdealmeetup.com, the place where it's awesome to be a Duru and not a guru.